And then we go
Oh,
live.
we've gone live.
Yes. Um, we had a little bit of confusion. We thought it was 12:45, but it's actually 12:30, and I thought I'd get on the line in case anyone was actually watching or listening. So
Yes.
we were just talking about what we are going to talk about anyway. So let me get this up on the screen because I think it's easier for me to put this lovely banner up there that says exactly what we're going to be talking about. So first of all, Ashley Al Sadi, thanks so much for joining me on the call today.
Yes. My absolute pleasure, as always.
We're going to be talking about cold calling because of a couple of things. Number one is Ashley, who anyone who knows Ashley, she's the cold calling queen, and her tagline is she loves cold calling. And
Mm.
I sort of am curious because I come from a sales background as well, and I know for a fact that telephone has not died. Calling people and using telephones to contact people is as valid today as email is, and it's just another channel. So maybe we just kick off this conversation by talking about what's the thought process around cold calling being more alive now than ever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, as you said, David, I'm known as the cold calling queen, and I definitely wear that crown with pride because let's face it, most people shy away from this grunt work, even though it really is the bloodline of your business. So
Mm,
that's where this topic really comes into play because I find more now than ever, people are really craving that human to human connection. We've seen the boom of online social media. You've even got things like chat gpt and things like that coming into play, and what's happening is people are relying on that, but they're forgetting that human element. And so, what I'm seeing is even if a business is being really proactive in generating leads via Facebook, let's say, or
yeah.
via LinkedIn, the missing piece of the puzzle is that ability to pick up the phone
Mm.
and actually have a conversation so that they can qualify them and ultimately sign them as a client.
Because I think, like, you touched on the whole chat GPT issue, and we've got so many people right now, getting into this world and going, I don't have to talk to anyone. The robot will do all that work for me.
Yes.
But the truth of the matter is people buy from people.
Yeah.
And the whole notion of having a trust relationship with someone and getting to know them can really only happen in a conversation. So
Yeah.
whether it's via Zoom or whether it's via telephone, I still think people have this thing where if I'm talking to a person,
Yeah.
then there's a pretty good chance that I can get a gauge for, are they good at what they do? Do they know about my problem? Can they help solve the issues I have? So it's a bit more dynamic than just a straight out piece of copy written through AI.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. And I mean, I think, before we, went live, David, I'd said to you that, Chat GPT was something that was brought to me by my husband. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like AI is just, as we know, leaps and bounds ahead in creating some things. But as you touched on, that human element will always be there. And I actually put it to the test. I said to him, look, I'm going to try and create a call script because my gosh, if they could create this is a lot of my work done in setting up a client, right? But what they created was very much, just pulling information off of, the internet, and it didn't have that conversational style, again, that human flavor to it.
Mm.
So, whilst everything might have a time and place, it might help you with a little bit of your admin or in creating a bit of information.
Mm.
You're always going to have to add your own human flair and ultimately to have the ability to pick up the phone and actually use that script anyway. So, yeah, it's interesting times.
So where does a phone call fit in the we talk about client acquisition, we talk about lead gen, and I always
Mm,
look at telephone and say really it's just a channel, right?
yes.
We can use it to generate leads, we can use it to nurture leads, we can use it to do sales conversations. Where do
Yes.
you think it's becoming more pertinent and more useful out of those three channels?
Wow, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and what comes to mind for me is that Promo Donna clients, so Promo Donna, my lead generation and cold calling agency, our clients use us probably at different points in the sales process, to be honest. So, as an example, it can be at the very, very start of the funnel. So, when people are actually looking to break into new markets, to really fill their pipeline with new leads,
Yeah.
they'll actually get us to, go out. And that's where a real cold call comes into play,
Right.
reaching out to someone that's never heard of your business, never heard your spiel before.
Mm.
Then, however, we also have those other clients, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, who might be using, say, like a digital platform to generate new leads. So, if we look at that funnel,
Yeah.
they've already put some in the top,
Yeah.
but now it's actually got to the qualification piece. And I think that, you need that ability to, again, pick up the phone, give that human element, you know, build that relationship and qualify them out. And sometimes we're used for that process as well.
Yes.
Um,
I
but
really.
oh, sorry to jump in,
Yep.
but I'll also mention, David,
Yeah.
that what comes to mind is there's probably a third use,
Yeah.
for the phone, which is paramount in a sales conversation, which is follow up. Because you've been in business and sales for a long time as well.
Yeah.
We know that now it takes, gosh, 8 to 15 touch points at times before someone actually converts into a client.
Mhm.
So if you've sent out a proposal, do you have that ability to call them, have another conversation, know
Yeah.
how to say it and what to say? So yeah, there's all different points in which
Yeah.
the phone is very important.
Yeah. Because what I was going to say is we're talking about cold calling today, but really, if someone inquires on my website and the initial phone call that I make, is that a cold call or is that a warm call? How would you categorize that call?
Yeah. And it is. It's kind of evolved over time, hasn't
Yeah.
it? A cold call.
Yeah.
And it's also why I find myself having to really define the promo donna and what we do. Because,
Yeah.
yes, if you say cold call, for most people, it is a straight out pick up the phone and call someone who has never heard from you before, and that ability to turn them into an interested prospect.
Yeah.
I would actually say that, a call that's coming inbound, that they're making an inquiry, is a little bit warmer, but there's still going to be certain elements of that where you're, again, going to have to qualify out whether they're a fit for your business, whether they understand what you're offering, and ultimately whether they're, going to want to work with you.
And even in that though, because sometimes people will have like lead magnets, right? So they
Mm,
advertise and they say, hey, you should register and grab our free stuff. And as a
yes.
result of that registration, I get an email address, a name, and a phone number. That
Mm,
person's not expecting my call, right?
yes.
They think that they gave those details to get access to this information. So I would see that as a cold call, right?
Definitely.
Because unless that person said, I want you to ring me, here's my phone number, it's an interruption based call, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that what you're talking about, those types of methods are being used more than ever
Yeah.
because let's face it, we've got direct mail campaigns, but you've also got, a lot of the advertising online, which
Yes.
is essentially asking people, even if it's just one piece of information.
Hmm.
Like we've got a real estate business that we work for, and if someone kind of types in their address,
Yeah.
as you're saying, that's almost taken as interest around getting an appraisal. Now,
Yes.
that's not necessarily the case because that person might be, just curious. It might be a family member that's wondering, what their property's worth.
Yep.
However, we still make that call to again try and generate that interest and,
Right.
determine whether they are a good fit and in need.
Yeah.
So,
So literally, it's not someone saying, "Hey, call me because I want my property appraised." They're saying, "Here's my telephone number because I'm looking at one of your properties, or I'm doing a market comparison."
could
So
be,
you still need to navigate because arguably they're not expecting your call, and they're
yeah,
certainly not aware of what you're offering. So it's, let's call it a lukewarm call, right? Because it's a semi-qualified lead. It's someone who raised their hand, and it
yeah,
requires a little bit of skill because the salesperson still has to, hello, who is this? What is this regarding? And why am I talking to you? They need to
yeah,
get past that initial conversation. But The reason I'm excited about what you're talking about today is that really as the world gets noisier, right? Because
Hmm.
we're living in the communication age, and I believe that there's more channels opening up and there's more messages being sent out, and people are starting to put earplugs in and then not read their email, and they're starting to ignore things. For a person marketing their business, you still need to be able to cut through the noise.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes a phone ringing is hard to ignore.
Yes.
And so it's just another way. I mean, just personally, one of the things we found is SMS marketing is like a little sort of hidden gem that we never realized
Yeah,
was so valuable. Because when I send you an SMS, you will look at your phone. When
that's
I send you
right.
an email, you may not ever see it because it goes into
Yeah.
spam and so you still got to treat it with respect because people don't want to get smashed with marketing messages through SMS. But what we found is people weren't getting delivery of email, and they're going, "Oh
Hmm.
no, we went to your website, we made an inquiry, we never heard anything back." And you're
Yes.
going, "Oh, well, that's interesting. We sent you 7 emails," and they go, "Well, we didn't see one." And so now we've
Exactly.
integrated SMS in there, and it's just a adjunct to the current service. Now, I think phone calls are the same.
Hmm.
When someone makes inquiry with us, and I often find this in Sales 101, people ring you because they have a problem
Hmm.
and they don't really know what you sell or how you can help them. A salesperson will go straight into selling mode. A good salesperson will go straight into inquiry mode. Now,
Yes.
before we go any further, let me understand what's happening for you right now. Let's see if there's a fit.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
So I mean, without going into the anatomy of a cold call, because we could do that, but today's conversation is really to express to the viewing audience the importance of telephone in the marketing mix.
Mm.
And maybe just to sort of those people who think phones are dead now because everyone's on Zoom and AI and all sorts of other things are coming in, and even what I'm saying about SMS, it doesn't
Yes.
replace the phone. Actually, is a
Yes.
phone, but it doesn't replace the phone call, the cold calling. So, what's your view? How are you seeing the market move?
So if we put it like, what would I say to someone that says to me, well, I think the phone's dead. We've got everything coming in like Zoom and everyone's so busy right now. I would be saying back to that again, I think it's more alive than ever. And for reasons that you said, David, it gives you that ability that it's the most direct way to speak with your target market. And, if you pick up the phone, yes, you may, find that they're busy at times, because that's an objection I constantly get is, it's not easy to reach decision makers these days because they're quite busy. However, if you persist, if you, make, say 2 to 3 calls, you usually get that cut through if you have a great approach. And not only that, if we come back to that whole fact that it's the most direct way of talking to them, you're going to gauge whether there's interest. You're going to determine all the information that you need to sell back to them, or you're going to be able to find out when are they going to be ready and when are you going to be able to follow up.
Yeah,
So that's where we're finding, our activity still works because it gets you that cut through. And I would also say this, a piece of advice that my father gave to me when I was younger, and I've always carried this with me, right? Was look at what everybody else is doing and do the opposite, and you'll be successful. And I just loved it because think about it from my point of view. I've definitely done that, being the cold calling queen. I'm doing the activity that no one wants to do,
yeah,
but this is my advice to everyone watching is if you feel that way or you think that way, likelihood is your competitors feel the same. So
yeah.
your competitors might not be picking up the phone, which means if you do and you make it a part of your marketing mix, you could be leaps and bounds ahead of your competition. You're going to be talking to the market
Yeah.
and they won't be.
Yes. And as you're probably super aware, it's a numbers game anyway. And
Yes.
I don't think it's either or. I don't think it's do I do cold calling or do I do attraction based marketing. It's an and, right?
Mm,
Because one thing I've learnt with marketing in general is when you do two strategies, you'll get more than one plus one. You'll get 2.2, right? Because you'll
yeah.
get cross pollination. And I think when you have 5 strategies, if each one of them sort of connects with each other, so people can call you, SMS you, message you on Messenger, so they can pick their preferred communication channel, then what you're doing is you're picking up all the bits and pieces. So
Yeah.
I think a call us button is a good one. I think people making phone calls outbound and leaving a message and knowing that some people will never respond to that call is
Mm-hmm.
fine, but other people prefer talking to humans, and they go through this process and they go, I've got a whole lot of stuff in my message in my inbox, but I never read it because I don't know who these people are. It's all cold. Then I get a
Yes.
call from a human who's bothered taking the time to call me, and that resonates with me because I'm an auditory person. I actually like talking to people. I
Mm-hmm.
buy from people I like. So it's just a different element, and I feel like people are discarding it too quickly by saying it's dead.
Yes.
Um, and
And
it's
also because, like, let's face it, it's probably the easy way out to say that because then they get out of calling, right? But, I'll give you an example that there was a woman who approached us, to be a client of the Promo Donna, and she had used that exact method you were talking about, David, to have predominantly all of her marketing online. She had a button that said, call me, but she said that she received the majority of her inquiries via email or via message on Instagram. Now, I kind of went through the process of working out with her, well, how many are you converting from these inquiries? How many are you converting? And it was a very low number. She would get maybe a response back, she'd answer a question, and then it never went anywhere.
yeah,
Now, I obviously recommended, why don't we pick up the phone and call all of these leads that inquired initially but never went anywhere?
hmm
And there were so many that were ripe for the picking, as
yeah,
in exactly as you'd pointed out. When we actually followed up and made the call, it was almost like, number one, they were shocked because they were like, oh, someone's actually called
a
me,
human.
a human has called me. And they said, I really appreciate the call as well because it's great brand awareness. And not only that, you're able to talk a bit further with them about their wants, their needs, how you can help them, because we know that that is sales, genuinely helping people. So she was able to get a lot of great results just from picking up the phone. So it's, I guess, my feedback to those listening and watching, that if you are just relying on those incoming inquiries via email or via message, and then you're thinking, well, I haven't got a very good conversion rate, it may be just a matter of revisiting those leads, picking up the phone and having conversations.
And one of the things we talk about a lot with people is about acquisition cost of a client.
Mm,
And it literally doesn't matter how much it costs to buy a client. The question is, what's my return on investment? And
yes.
so I use the analogy of, if I gave you $2 for every dollar that you gave me, how much would you give me? And people go, well, it depends. Depends how much, is it cash? It's a hypothetical. Give me a dollar, I'll give you two. How much would you give me? They say, oh, I don't know, $10. I go, why would you give me 20? They go, I don't know, I don't trust you. I go, let's assume it's, and the whole mindset is around, well, if I can see a return on my dollar, right?
Mhm.
And I trust the source and I can monitor the source. As long as I'm getting $2 for every dollar, I'll take every cent I can possibly get my hand on and
Yeah.
deposit it in there. Now, I look at marketing exactly the same way for most businesses, because when I talk to them, the problem is not their ability to deliver a service. Their problem is getting more clients or getting more profitable clients. So they're
Yeah.
sitting there going, oh, we're flat out, we're busy, we're busy. I go, oh, okay, could you handle a few more clients? Oh, yeah, we could always handle a few more clients. It's like, you just told me how busy you were. Oh, but we can always make room. So you go, so you're not really that busy then? No, we're
Yeah.
busy. And you sort of listen to the languaging, and the languaging is, I'm fearful because I'll take a
Mhm.
client if they're real, but I don't want to waste time talking to people who are not. With the
Yes.
extension of that, we look at things like telemarketing, cold calling, and we say, well, it's just a cost, right? It's a
Mm.
cost of acquisition. And if I can see a return, so if I put a dollar in and I get $2 out, then I'll put every cent I can in. So
Mhm.
if we look at every channel the same way and say, look, it's all about how much it costs to acquire a client and what are we prepared to spend,
Yes.
as long as our delivery capacity is there. Now, the catch 22 here is, I think a lot of people say, I'm too busy and I'm not suffering from lack of clients, they just don't want to pay enough.
Yes.
You've heard this term before. You know all the objections, right?
Totally.
And then we look at it and we say, well, marketing doesn't have the role of generating leads for you in that situation. It has the role of generating quality for you, which
Yes.
means people who are willing to pay the premium price, not the discounted price, because of who you are. And a lot of
Mm,
that message is conveyed through a conversation, right?
yes.
Now, if we start to think about it that way, then cold calling is just another string to the bow. That's all
Yeah.
it is, right? And until the day that that acquisition cost is greater than my profit, lifetime value, profit wise, it's just
Mhm.
another way to fill my business.
Yes. And I love the example that you gave, David, about, the business owner that says, oh, I'm so busy.
Mm.
And, but we could always do with more clients. This is probably one of the main scenarios in which we work with a client. It's
Yeah.
actually the aftermath of that discussion, I might say. And I learnt this the hard way. So when I created the Promo Donna, I was very busy. I generated my first, few clients using my own methods of
Yeah.
picking up the phone. And then I was so busy facilitating my own services, I stopped and my pipeline was completely cold. And that's when someone gets a bit desperate and goes, oh, we need to start filling that pipeline
Yeah.
again. So I guess it's coming back to this whole discussion we're having around cold calling. Why is it more alive than ever now? And I think it'll always be relevant because, as you said, it's another string to your bow to consistently generate new sales leads.
Yeah.
Because if you rely on, say, word of mouth and referral, or, even to a certain extent, advertising, because it's not always really measurable and trackable,
Mm.
I think that adding something like cold calling into the mix is really important, because I always like to say we're like a little engine room ticking away.
Mm-hmm.
You know that every single week you've got 100 calls, going out to your market. You're probably going to reach, 10 to 20 decision makers, and maybe you get 4 to 5 appointments. But at least those leads are guaranteed to kind of come in on that regular basis,
Yeah.
rather than you falling into that trap of saying, oh, we're really busy. And then suddenly next month you go, oh, we don't have any leads because we haven't been proactively going to market at all. So, yeah.
Interesting, because what you're talking about now is a what I would call a sophisticated marketing model. Because
Yes.
most people, their marketing goes in lumps, not in streams, and they don't have this ability to adjust.
Yes.
And one of the real issues, and I've heard this a lot, is people go, I'm scared to market because what happens if it works? I
This
can't
is
cope.
the other side of it, isn't it?
And you go, well, that's probably a good problem to have, having more prospects coming and knocking on your door than you can handle, because now you can increase your price a little bit.
Yes.
But it's a reason not to do it, right? But if you looked at it mathematically and just said, look, I'm looking for an ROI. So I'm going to pay this money, and I'm going to attribute how many sales I make as a result of this, and I can see the maths.
Mm-hmm.
There's a brilliant little book by Dan Kennedy, who's one of the marketing masters, called Almost Alchemy. His whole message is simple. He goes, marketing is mathematical, and as long as you know your numbers and you know how much it costs to acquire a client, and that number is less than your profit on that client, you have a cash-making machine. In a business. Now, what channels you use is totally dependent on the results they're getting. And if cold calling works because everyone else has moved away from it, and this is one of the interesting things that happened at the start of COVID, when a lot of companies cut their marketing budget out of panic, and all of a sudden paid advertising became super cheap because all the big players pulled out saying, we don't know what's going to happen, we're going to put a pause on these things. You go, great, we're in. The same happened with the phone. I remember at the start of COVID, everyone was stuck at home twiddling their thumbs. So if the phone rings when you're in isolation, it's like, hey, someone to talk to.
Yeah.
So
we had some great results through lockdown, because exactly as you're saying, we knew, I mean, there was actually a fear that, we wouldn't be able to reach decision makers because they weren't at home. Oh, sorry, they were at home rather than in the office. But as we saw, a lot of offices had to get very savvy and smart. So it's almost like we called the office, they direct transferred us.
Yeah.
And then, as you were saying, people were like, yes, I want to talk to you. Like, let's keep having these conversations.
Yeah.
But not only that, I think it's continued, as we go back, to this kind of normal world again. I'm finding that, people are very, it's like coming into, back to something they, did before, but they're still not sure of it. And so if you're someone that can, again, continue these conversations, have really professional and, great discussions, natural discussions with people,
Yeah.
you again are going to be leaps and bounds ahead, because I think, yeah, competition, everyone's kind of shying away from it because they're still not sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, you'll kind of beat them to the punch. So,
Yeah. So look, I suppose the reality of today's conversation is cold calling's alive and well.
hmm
For those who are naive enough not to measure it as a potential string to their bow of sales and marketing, well, that just means that they're probably missing out on that space. I
yeah.
remember late last year, I was listening to an interview with Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you know who that is, but very famous marketer in the States, and he markets gym. He does a thing called Gym Launch, so he helps people build their gym memberships, and he
Ah,
was relying a lot on his social media. Like, we're
yeah.
talking like hundreds of thousands a month that he's spending.
Mm,
And he went to get his business valued. And one of the valuation criteria was the security of your pipeline.
okay. Yep.
And what they realized is he had one marketing channel. And they said, your business is high risk because you only have one marketing channel. And he goes, but it's working so well. And they said, but that's not the problem, because when it stops, you've got nothing else. You have no plan B. So
Yes.
he quickly realized, because it was all inbound, it was attraction based marketing, and he still does it. He does these fantastic blogs and posts and videos, and people come by the thousands to his website. But what he did is he actually put a telemarketing team on, because he said,
Mhm,
hey, telemarketers can buy lists, ring numbers, and make calls and make contact and make sales.
mhm.
And I can control the volume of that one just by saying, I need more salespeople or I need less salespeople. And
Yeah.
so what he was doing is mitigating the risk, okay, of his marketing channel by putting two pylons in place rather than one. And I think for
Yes.
some people, they don't look at it that way. They're looking for the secret sauce, the one answer, the best way to market my business. And the answer is you probably need more than one way.
Yeah.
And if you have a business that sells to people, which is pretty much every business, people to people contact is definitely something that can be part of that mix. It's just a matter of making it profitable.
Yes, agree. And yeah, I couldn't agree more, in the sense that, when a client approaches us, just as you said, and they either don't have a marketing plan, like they don't have any other strategies,
Yeah.
or, maybe they've only relied on the one, it does make me nervous at times, because yeah, you need to have, I think, a number of types of activity running
Yes.
these days, I think, to be really successful.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for the Promo Donna, as a cold calling company, we obviously use our own, skills and talents to
Yeah.
generate new business. But we also use, a range of other things. We have like social media running. I obviously love doing professional speaking and events and the like, to also, promote what we do. So there's a whole range of things that we implement, and I'm always recommending it to my clients as well. But I think that, to come in, back to what you're saying, David, to kind of connect with that, yes, for those, watching and listening, if you are running, say, one piece of a marketing strategy or one piece of the marketing pie, it might be social media, it may be time to, consider something like cold
Mm.
calling, because it is a direct way of communicating with your market to
Yeah.
kind of boost what you're already doing, because you might be, getting that brand awareness and getting a few leads, but this is a way of adding that human element and actually having great conversations with your prospects.
Lovely. So let's wrap this conversation up with your top 3 tips for people who are considering going into cold calling as part of their strategy.
Oh, and now are you asking that from a point of view that they'll be making the cold calls?
Well, the first
Or
question is,
we will?
because white's alive now more than ever. For some
Yes.
people, it's going to be a question of, should I do it?
Mm,
How should I do it? And
yes.
how do I know whether it's going to work for me?
Mm, okay, so let's look at, should I do it as the
Mhm.
first question? I mean, I'm going to be pretty biased in saying, yes, I think you should.
Yeah.
But, maybe a piece of advice around that is to look at, your sales and marketing plan. Now, there
Yeah.
might be people out there sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a sales and marketing plan. They might have a business plan, which
Yeah.
you reinforced, David. If you don't have a sales and marketing plan, obviously put one together. And
Mhm.
that's about looking at things like who's your target market? What kind of demographic do they sit in? And also to that effect, would they be a market that would resonate with a cold call? Because
Mm.
this is another good point. If they are assessing whether or not to do it, if you're someone that is saying like the business to business space, cold calls are fantastic because you or an outsourced team have that ability to call someone at the office,
Yeah.
have that conversation, whereas it can be a little bit harder if it is a consumer, even though it's possible.
Mhm.
But yeah, business to business is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, assess your sales and marketing plan, look at what you're currently doing and whether your target market would resonate,
Yeah.
with a cold calling campaign. And then if you decide that, yes, this is for us, we really want to do it,
Mm.
it would be assessing, well, how are you going to do it? And that is, are you going to hire a resource internally? Because that's one option. You could
Yeah.
actually recruit someone, train them up, manage them. But that also means that you'd have to come up with things like scripts, an
Mhm.
approach to market.
Yeah.
You need to source a list, because the list is so integral to what you do to get a really
Oh.
great list. And if the other option is, an outsourced function, which is a bit like my business, it's about assessing all different providers and determining which one would be the best suit, for your business. And there are a range of us out there. It's about just finding who's suitable.
Just back to your list comment, right? When I was in a presentation last week, and one of the guys was talking about LinkedIn as a
Yes.
marketing tool. And
Mm,
everyone sort of that I speak to says, oh, we should be using LinkedIn more as a marketing tool. But I don't know
yes.
about you, but I go and check my LinkedIn account once every 3 weeks.
Yes.
And my inbox has at least 50 emails saying, hey, I saw your profile and we should connect. How are you going? What's your biggest frustration? And it's like, it's just like a myriad of the sameness, right? And I read them looking for someone smart in there. And this guy
Me
pointed out, he
too.
said, here's the funny thing. LinkedIn is a brilliant database, right?
Yes.
It's the most comprehensive database on the planet. And you can go in there through Sales Navigator and you can find your target market and you can extract a list. But if you start trying to message them through LinkedIn, you just go into the sea of sameness, right?
Mm,
So his suggestion was get the list off LinkedIn and
yes.
cold call it.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Interesting, huh? So
that's
using the
right.
hybrid, and this is what we were talking about before, is if I try LinkedIn as a solo strategy, I'm just going to sound like everyone else on LinkedIn. And me, I don't check my LinkedIn profile more than once every 2 or 3 weeks. But if
Yes.
someone went on there to find me, found my phone number and called me and said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling because I saw on LinkedIn that you do this, they would
Yes.
cut through the clutter and they would actually engage with me in conversation.
Yes.
So, when we talk about cold calling, it's not a matter of just being traditional cold callers, it's a matter of using an integrated strategy. Awesome.
Yes. And I think the key that you said there, David, is the hybrid approach.
Yes.
For those of you out there that might be watching and considering using LinkedIn for list generation, I completely agree. It's such a great database, and we'll often reference it. So if we've got a database, we need the HR manager, but we're not sure of, another decision maker's name, we might search them.
Yeah.
But we've known, or we've got client that comes to mind, he uses that hybrid approach of having us cold call, but he'll also connect with people. And now you hit the nail on the head, David, by saying you don't want to be salesy. So he reaches out and he says, hi, I'm Nick, a bit about the business. And he says, you may have got a call from one of my staff members. I would love to connect with you. So
Yeah.
it's very personalized.
Yeah.
It's not a blatant pitch. And we get a lot of great outcomes from that, from kind of leverage from his connections.
Fantastic. So I suppose the message from today is simple. Cold calling can be very useful as an integrated part of any marketing strategy. Takes a little
Yes.
bit of strategizing and thought process and identification of the best way to communicate, but it's far from dead,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it?
Yes.
It's really
And
just going through
I will
emotions.
argue, I don't know if it'll ever be dead.
Well, and I think when humans stop
Even
talking
when
to each
robots,
other,
even if like AI and robots take over, I'm sure that there will be people, because we know what it's like now. Say, if you call a bank or something and
mm,
you get answered by an automated service
yeah,
or a robot, an AI of sorts, you get so frustrated. So you think of it the other way with your clients. They want to talk to someone from your company. They want to have a conversation. So yeah, I can't see the end of the tunnel for us. I think we've still got a very
yeah.
long
And if
time.
anyone's unsure, I'm sure they can have a quick chat with you to identify whether that's a valid part of their strategy. But whether
Yes,
you do it yourself or whether you outsource it, it's not a question of how you do it. It's a question of, is it applicable, and is it going to produce a good return on your marketing investment?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always am open to those conversations. And obviously, I'm so passionate about what we do.
Mm.
If the result is that someone works out, well, maybe outsourcing isn't for us, I still, love to help people, whether it's advising them on, list brokers
Yeah.
or script development and such. So, yeah, if anyone wants to reach out, I'm always available.
Yeah. Brilliant. Ashley, thanks so much for your time today. Been
You too.
amazing as always. And like we know, cold calling is still around and it's going to be around for a long time. So it's a question of how we can implement it within our business.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And I hope that people got some, tips that they can implement. And if not, maybe just a bit of a thought process of, yeah, is this something that I could use in my business?
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.